For this edition of Rough Cuts, this is Sal Lasardo reporting in from Claremont, Florida, with this week's edition. We're going to talk about Wrestlemania 3. It aired this week on FS1 on Tuesday night, and then afterwards they did Backstage, hosted by Renee Young, Christian, CM Punk, Booker T, and special guest Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, who was a part of the most famous match in WrestleMania history, and obviously the best match to date in WrestleMania history. You could watch all the WrestleManias, all of them all, on the WWE Network for $9.99 a month and get your first month free. But I wanted to go back and relive it because we've been talking about WrestleMania 3 on Twitter, online, and FS1 did appear it. The first one was, where were we all? Everybody was talking about, where were you when this all went down? Well, back then, we didn't have pay-per-view where I lived in New Jersey. So my friend Mike Malloy, who's an avid wrestling fan like myself, and another friend of mine, trying to find a place that could, that we can go and watch it. And my friend Mike and I have been friends for over 35 years, and at that point found Manalapan High School was hosting it for like $25. They held it in the gymnasium. It was about 20 minutes from us. We lived in East Brunswick, Spotswood area, so it wasn't far to go. And so we went, and we paid our $25 and had refreshments and sat in the stands at the floor, and they had the big screen TV and the big speakers and everything. So it was good. I mean, it was before you could actually watch it on a physical pay-per-view because it wasn't available pay-per-view in all areas. So we went to closed circuit television for WrestleMania 3. And the card, you look back on it and things that maybe you've missed or not missed. I'm going to go through some things about it. First of all, there was 12 matches on the card. The longest match on the card itself was the Ricky Dragon Steamboat Savage match. That was the longest card. That went nearly 15 minutes. Hogan's match with Andre went 12 minutes. They were the only two matches on the 12-match card that went to double digits of minutes. Everything else was under 10 minutes as far as bell time was concerned. You didn't count for the entrances, but as far as the bell time itself. And it was a if you look at all these WrestleManias, this was a fairly solid card, and this was a rebound WrestleMania because WrestleMania 2, in my eyes, was a debacle. It was. It was a failure in my eyes. It was not a great card. Mr. T and Piper should have never happened. Uh, it just did not have a WrestleMania feel, especially when you're coming off WrestleMania 1. So WrestleMania 2 was kind of a down one, and they needed to rebound, and they did. They had Ricky Steamboat said it best during Backstage. It's not like where you have a pay-per-view every month and you don't have time to build the story. Savage and Steamboat's story took time to build. So by the time that this happened, people were anticipating this. Hogan and Andre had built. They built it through Piper's Pit. So you had the time to build it and get the people excited. Piper and Adonis, another match. Piper comes back. His Piper Pit has been replaced with the Flower Shop. They had time to build their feud. So there was some feuds that had time to build where you want to see what was going on. Obviously, the draw was Hogan and Andre. That's what you pay for. But you also had a fairly loaded card below it. And it wasn't all bad. It was actually fairly good. It had a balance. I think that's one thing that you could say about WrestleMania 3, as opposed to others. I mean, there's always there's been 36 of them, but WrestleMania 3 will stand out as a balanced card. And what I mean was that the heels won and the faces won. It wasn't one side dominating the other. Not every title changed hands. It was not all the titles were on the line either, too. Uh, because the tag match, the six-man tag was the Bret Hart and Danny Davis match with Tito, Santana, and the Bulldogs. Well, they had the belts, the Hart Foundation, so they didn't put their belts on the line. So it had a balance. You had some titles on the line. You didn't have every title change in. You had faces win. You had heels win. You had a little bit of everything. And to me, it stands out more so than so many of the other WrestleManias. And this was really I think, the rebound from two, and also the culmination of what wrestling should be going forward. It took place in the Pontiac Silverdome. This is where the Detroit Lions played at that point. And they packed close to 90 something thousand people, give or take, but not a lot of people. I mean, this is huge for the WWF WWE. I mean, this is huge. This is your marquee matchup. You had to sell Hogan and Andre. You sold Savage and Steamboat, and Piper and Adonis was meant to be fun. Jake Roberts had Alice Cooper in the corner against Honky Tonk Man, which Honky Tonk later became Intercontinental Champion. And when he beat Ricky Steamboat, he became one of the all-time greatest Intercontinental Champions of all time. So there was a lot going on here, and it was really, this Mania set the stage. They opened the show with the Can-Am connection with Martel and Zink against Orton and Morocco with Mr. Fuji in the corner. And this was an upset. I mean, it was an upset. Martel and Zink beating two veterans by pinfall with Morocco and Orton on that side. That was a solid opening matchup. A true solid opening matchup. You have Morocco Morocco and Orton are in the Hall of Fame, and so is Martel. Zink is not, but three Hall of Famers in the ring, Hall of Fame wrestlers. I mean, that says a lot. I mean, that's a good way to open a show. I'm surprised Morocco and Orton did not stick together longer and be able to maybe see what they could have done. I'm kind of surprised. I also forgot to mention Aretha Franklin opened the show. That was perfect. America the Beautiful, Motown, Detroit, perfect. That's exactly what you wanted. And that's what you needed to get it started. And then they led into the opening match with Morocco and Orton to open it up against the Can-Am Connection. I thought it was a solid opening match. Didn't need to go too long. It served its purpose. It set the stage, I think, for the rest of the night. I liked when they came out on that entranceway, that ramp, or that cart that they took them to the ring. A lot of the wrestlers came out on it, and then some of them, like Piper and Hogan, walked out. I thought that was really cool. I mean, we don't see that too much. I mean, we see the entrances, but we don't see that kind of an entrance in the modern day world. So that was something. I don't know if you were watching. The cart coming down was awesome. Gorilla Monsoon and Jesse Ventura. You have to understand something here. We're sitting at home. It's like listening to Vince Scully or, calling a ball game. I mean, Joe Garagiola calling a ball game. I'm not going to, Howard Cosell and Dandy Don and Frank Gifford and those guys. Jesse Ventura, to me, reminds me of like Howard Cosell. That's what Jesse Ventura. He's the man that tells it like it is. You love him, but you want to hate him, but you know he's right. And he had such incredible chemistry with the late Gorilla Monsoon. And Gorilla Monsoon reminded me of a Frank Gifford, Dandy Don Meredith. I mean, he really did. They complement each other. It worked. It meshed so well. And the commentary was right on the money from the opening bell, regardless. I mean, it was right on the money. How could you got into it. You got into WrestleMania because you got into the commentary. Jesse and Gorilla, Abbott and Costello, Batman and Robin, Howard Cosell, Don Meredith. I mean, you had all that rolled into one. Then you throw in Bob Uecker. Bob Uecker's never had a front row seat to anything in his life, and he's out there doing he was out in the front doing the ring announcing for the Hogan-Andre match, and then he was doing interviews in the back. And Mary Hart had the classic line that said, "I'm not related to Jimmy Hart. I'm not related to the Hart Foundation. We may share the same last name." That was incredible. I mean, Mary Hart and Bob Uecker. I mean, Bob Uecker got a front row seat to WrestleMania. He got a front row seat to that main event. He's never been there. And those who don't know, Bob Uecker's a Hall of Famer. He was in the Major League movies. He was also in Mr. Belvedere. And he also, got, he was, the Mendoza line. But you have to understand, listen to Bobby Uecker. He still does the Brewers radio games, obviously with Epidemic. But if you listen to him, I have a chance to listen to him on the MLB channel online. He's nothing like the character that you see as far as the Major League movies. I think He's more like a Vince Scully type of broadcaster when you listen to his games being called. He really he's got so many incredible stories. It's such passion and energy, and obviously the love for the Brewers that he's had for decades and decades doing broadcasting. So at that time, that was perfect. Bob Uecker was in the height of his popularity, and Mary Hart, the host of Entertainment Tonight at the time, you couldn't go wrong. So this had a really good balance going forward. I mean, this was really coming together. Um, Billy Jack Haynes and Bobby against Hercules, that ended in a double countout. That was one of the rare no contest type matches. Hercules and Billy Jack would go on to continue to battle their feud throughout. What was interesting about this card also is Bobby Heenan and Jimmy Hart, they had a lot to do. They were busy. Jimmy Hart took a lot of bumps in this card. Hands down, Jimmy Hart took, if you watch this card, Jimmy Hart was one busy man, and he took a lot of bumps. He took bumps from everybody in this in this entire card. You got to give Jimmy Hart a lot of credit. He took one for the company. He does. And Bobby Heenan always does, too. But he took one for the company tonight more so than Bobby, because Jimmy was basically on his rear end the entire time, and he was getting tossed all over the place. So kudos to Jimmy Hart there for that. The Haiti Kid and Hillbilly Jim and Little Beaver defeated King Kong Bundy, Little Tokyo, Lord Little Brook by disqualification. What happened was King Kong Bundy by the time won the midgets, and that's how it ended. This was basically just to be filler, to be some fun, some entertainment. I wish the WWE would bring back the midgets. I kind of like watching them. I would love to see the mighty midgets back. I know it got phased out as the years went by, but I kind of look forward to watching the Lord Little Brook, Little Tokyo guys. They were fun. They were a fun attraction. I would love to see how the modern day audience today would be able to handle and respond to seeing the midgets in the ring today. I would love to see them come back. I really would. I think it would be incredible to watch. I think they were fun back then. I think there could be a talent pool out there. And why not introduce this generation to the Mighty Midgets and let them shine and let them show you what they can do? It's meant to be fun. You're supposed to laugh and get excited. It's just to take away the serious side of the entertainment side of it. I would love to see the Midgets come back. I mean, this wasn't a class match. This was just a horrible match. But still, I mean, they had the chance to show their skills a little bit. I mean, Bundy ruined it, obviously, but that's fine. I wish the midgets would come back, but they were on the card. Harley Race and Moolah defeated the Junkyard Dog. What happened was the loser of this match was going to bow. This was an upset. I honestly thought, I told my friend Mike that I thought the Junkyard Dog would win. I mean, the Junkyard Dog's going to lose the Harley Race, and I thought we'd have the King Dog and the King of the Yard. Well, it turned out, no, Junkyard Dog lost. Junkyard Dog got pinned, and he did his curtsy, he did his bow, and then afterwards he picked up the chair and he hit Harley Race and went after and Junkyard Dog didn't take too kindly to losing that match. But it was an upset. I mean, nothing against Harley Race. Harley Race is a Hall of Famer. I don't think a lot of people expected Harley to win. I really thought that maybe Junkyard Dog would win. But that's where you had the balance of this card. You had a mixture. I mean, it wasn't to be expected that Harley was going to win. I didn't think Harley was going to win, and in a way, it was great. I mean, it was Junkyard Dog bowing to the king of wrestling at the time, Harley Race. No, it's not Baron Corbin. Sorry, Corbin, it's not you. It was Harley Race was the king at that time, but JYD crowned him, and that's what you're supposed to do to a king. You're supposed to crown him, and JYD did. Crown him. The Dream Team were on the card. Brutus, Beefcake, and Valentine defeated the Rougeau brothers. Dino Bravo and Valiant were in the quarter. This was before the Rougeaus turned heel. Now, remember, the Dream Team, Valentine and Beefcake, they were coming to the end of their run together. If you remember correctly, they were coming to the end, and it pretty much was the end on this card, because Brutus Beefcake became Brutus the Barbecue Cake and ended up helping Piper against Adonis. But if you remember the year before, they had the tag team titles and they lost to the British Bulldogs. So a year later now, this was the finish, per se. I mean, they won, but Brutus Beefcake ended up going out more on his own. He became a huge babyface known as the barber with the clippers. So this was likely their true last run together as a tag team. And you got to admit, Beefcake and Valentine were a very solid tag team. They worked well together. They took on all comers. They had the late Johnny Valiant in the corner as well. Uh, you couldn't go wrong here. Again, this was when the Rougeos were up and coming. This is before they were go and become heels and do their thing. Uh, but this was the last run for the Dream Team, and deservedly so. Valentine could work as a singles or a tag team wrestler on any circumstance, and it was a good fitting for them to go out together as a winner and move on and get Beefcake doing what he needed to do. And speaking of Beefcake, you had Roddy Piper against Adrian Adonis was next up. This was when Piper came back. Adonis took over the flower shop, Bob Orton, Jimmy Hart, and the loser was going to have their head shaven. And yeah, the travesty in this whole thing is that Adrian Adonis is not in the Hall of Fame. Adrian Adonis, part of the East-West connection with Jesse Ventura. He had a long, prosperous career. He was still fairly young, but he did so much in the business. It is a travesty that Adrian Adonis is not in the WWE Hall of Fame for all that he has given and done for the business. And he played this adorable one role incredibly well. He went from the brawler from the East Coast to the adorable one, like a Playboy Buddy Rose, Buddy Rogers, Glorious George, kind of thing. And it's tragic that he's not in the Hall of Fame. It's sad that he passed away as well, along with Piper. Piper passed away at the age of 61 a few years ago. The match was fun. It was meant to be kind of funny. I mean, they went back and forth and had some funny stuff. And of course, the end when Piper pinned Adonis, got the 1, 2, 3. Actually, he got him choked out, is what it was. He didn't pin him. He got him in the sleeper hold and the 1, 2, 3, and he was out. And that was due to the fact that Beefcake came in with the Clippers, and Adonis went after it and hit off the ropes, and the Clippers hit Adonis, and then Piper put the sleeper on, and Goodnight, his version of Goodnight Irene in 1, 2, 3, and Beefcake came out with the Clippers and shaving his hair, and they're throwing the hair into the crowd. And then they woke Adonis up, and you saw the whole thing, and that was just, it was meant to be funny. It wasn't meant to be anything serious. It was a way for Piper to go out. It was a way to turn Beefcake face because his popularity as the barber took off. And Adonis, again, was kind of winding. I mean, kind of limbo, too, is at this point. But it served its purpose. It was fun to see Piper walk out and do his thing. I mean, Piper was just very beloved. I mean, he really was. He don't forget, the year before, the first 2 WrestleManias, he was a heel. He main evented as a heel in WrestleMania 1 when he teamed with Orndorff and Orton against Hogan, T, and Snuka. And then the year before in WrestleMania 2, the debacle with Mr. T in the boxing match, which should have never took place in the first place. So this was kind of a redemption match for Piper as well, and to have some fun with Adrian, and it worked so well. And I enjoyed the match. I thought it was great all around. And Jimmy Hart just taking it all from all ends of the spectrum. One of my favorite moments, Dangerous Danny Davis and the Hart Foundation took care of the Bulldogs and Tito Santana. This is an upset. And the reason I say this is an upset is because the upset was that Dangerous Danny Davis was the one that got the pinfall for the team. This had to be Danny Davis's biggest win of his career. It has to be because it was on the biggest moment on the biggest stage in all of wrestling, WrestleMania. Danny Davis got the pin. This is when he was the corrupt referee at the time. He was still the bad referee, still doing his own thing. And he got the pinfall. And he got his hand raised. He was the one got the wrestle down 1, 2, 3, and he didn't even know where he was at, but he got the biggest win for his team. It wasn't the Hart Foundation that got the pin. It was Dangerous Danny Davis. And I'm sure if you ask him today, I'm sure he'd probably have to say that's probably the highlight of his career, getting a win on WrestleMania. I mean, who wouldn't want to get a win on WrestleMania and getting your hand raised on the grandest stage of all? So, and Jimmy Hart, again, had a deal with Matilda and the Bulldogs. And if you look closely with the dog, Jesse Ventura got introduced into the ring, and he was the one that took the dog out of the ring on the card. I'm surprised the dog didn't bite Jesse. So, but the man who told it like it is went down and made his appearance, and if you look, he took him shoulder to the back for the Bulldogs. Butch Reed with Slick took care of Coco Beware. Coco Beware is in the Hall of Fame. Butch Reed is not. Question mark, should Butch Reed be in the Hall of Fame? I think Butch Reed belongs in the Hall of Fame, but the natural is what he was. He was known as the natural Butch Reed. Absolutely. I think Butch Reed had a nice career himself. I'm surprised he didn't get more credit and recognition. He's always been a heel, and I'm kind of surprised he didn't get more done going forward. He never really got like a major push, but he really served his purpose. I'm surprised the WWE did not acknowledge Butch Reed for the Hall of Fame. The match of the whole everyone's been talking about. Ricky Steamboat and Savage was next up on this thing. Now, this is the whole thing with the Savage took the bell against Ricky, and this started the feud. Now, Savage had the Intercontinental title, so this was for the Intercontinental Championship on the card. Remember, the tag belts were not defended because the Hart Foundation had them. So you had the Intercontinental, and then you only had and Hogan. So there was only 3 belts, and actually the women did not defend. So there's only two titles were on the line out of four belts. The heavyweight belt, the Intercontinental Tag Team, and the women's belt. So only 2 of the 4 belts were on the line. This is going to go down as the greatest match in history of WrestleMania. And Ricky Steamboat was on backstage talking about it. They had time to build this up. And that was the whole thing. It took months, But the funny thing is, and that, in a funny way, is that they really didn't work together. There were no house shows between Savage and Steamboat. They had to come up with a plan. Now, no one knowing, they wanted to put on a really good match. They wanted to put on the match, not to steal the show or take away from Hogan and Andre, but when you go walk through that curtain, why wouldn't you want to try to have the match of the year? Why don't you not want to steal the show? Isn't that what you work for every single WrestleMania? To steal the show, to say that my match was the best match of the entire card. People are going to talk about it for generations to come. Well, you can't say that about all the hundreds of matches that took place over the last 36 years. But this match you can. This is arguably, and I don't think anybody could ever doubt this, this was the greatest match in the history of WrestleMania, hands down. Hands down. If this is the blueprint of what you want of your performers that step through the curtain, hands down. This is the blueprint. And every wrestling school or every wrestler that wants to be a wrestler, man or woman, needs to understand that if you want to be the best in your craft, you need to watch what Savage and Steamboat did. George Steele was in the corner, Elizabeth in the corner. They didn't figure it too much in the outcome of this. This was about Savage and Steamboat for the title. And whether the title, even if the title wasn't on, this was the blueprint of what WrestleMania was about, and what about any time that you step inside that square circle, this is what you need to try to do. And Christian said it best. He's tried to have matches, he could not duplicate it. Booker T could not. CM Punk could not. Nobody could. But you can watch it a million times, and I guarantee every time you watch it, you will learn something. And that's what the performers do. They watch it. They said it on backstage. They show this in the performance center to the wrestlers. If you want to be the best in your craft, this is the match you want to. This is the match that you want to have. Ricky Steamboat said on an average you would have about 8 to 10 near false finishes, and their match had over 20. And Ricky said the hardest part about this was the fact that he had to remember all the false finishes. Him and Savage, they had to remember all of that. You know how difficult that is in front of 90,000 people, screaming and yelling and getting on their feet to remember for almost 20 minutes to have this many false finishes. Even in a 60-minute match, Iron Man match, which is something Ricky Steamboat has done in his career, they didn't have as many false finishes as they did in Savage and Steamboat's match in the short amount of time. In less than 15 minutes, you had nearly over 20 false finishes. that means you're averaging about 1.5 false finishes per minute. That's a lot. That's a lot. Imagine if they had to do 60 minutes. I mean, that's just a lot to remember. And you've got to give a lot of credit to both of them to come up with a plan together to be able to deliver a match from start to finish that left you on the edge of your seat. And Hebner in the ring, I'm surprised he didn't break his hand all the time. Got to count 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 20-something times. And it stood out. But yeah, you paid your money to see Hogan and Andre. But did anybody expect it to be so the best match in the card? You expected they were going to put on a great match, maybe even Savage retaining. I didn't think at the time that Steamboat was going to get the title. I honestly did not believe Steamboat was going to get the title. I did not believe that at all. I figured Savage would still hold it for a while because he took on all comers. Yeah, he won it, with the brass knuckles against Tito Santana in the Boston Garden, and Danny Davis was the referee, obviously. So, but I didn't expect Steamboat to get the belt at that point, even with him coming back. I didn't expect it. I remember I told my friend Mike, and I told Dan, my other friend that was with me, I didn't think Steamboat was going to get the title. I thought they would keep it on Savage for a little bit longer, and maybe they would continue it and drag it out a little bit more. And when Steamboat won, you heard 90-something thousand people scream and go crazy. But you have to give kudos to them. I mean, they put on a match that we're still talking about 30-something years later. And rest in peace to Randy Savage, rest in peace to George Steele, rest in peace to Miss Elizabeth. Ricky Steamboat's the only one of the competitors that's still alive. I mean, the Hebner's still alive, but the wrestlers themselves, only Steamboat's still alive. And it was still a very, very iconic match to this day. How many matches can you say over the course of WrestleMania, the 36 years, that we're still talking about today? Exactly. Not many. But this one will always be at the top of the list. And Steamboat got the belt, and then unsuccessfully, Savage and him went back and forth, and had some house shows live, they couldn't get it. And Steamboat eventually lost the title to the Honky Tonk Man, which became the longest reigning, greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time, which was perfect for Honky at that point. And, Savage became a face and had his thing with Hogan, became a champion. But this match itself really just said a lot about two Hall of Fame iconic wrestlers. And they didn't steal the show. They made the show. They made the show. They created a lifetime memory for everyone that watched that match, either at home, there, wherever you were, even to this day, that they set the bar for every time that you walk through that curtain. This is what you got to do if you want to make it as a performer, as a wrestler. Not just a WWE wrestler, but a wrestler in general. This is what you got to do. And they did it. And they accomplished that in 20 minutes. There are wrestlers that can wrestle an hour that can't tell a story like that. And Steamboat's wrestled 60-minute matches before in his life. In fact, he said his first 60-minute match was with Harley Race. And he said that was the hardest thing he had to do. But you know what? I'll admit to this. I think the hardest thing Steamboat had to do was wrestle Savage for 20 minutes and all those false finishes. That was the hardest thing he ever had to do. And he's wrestled thousands of matches. I think this was the hardest thing he ever had to do, for both of them. And they did it so well. They worked so well together. And they created a lifetime memory. And kudos to Steamboat to taking the title. And like I said, eventually he dropped it to Honky Tonk, who then went on to eventually drop it to the Ultimate Warrior. As far as the rest of the card, the Iron Sheik and Volkov defeated the Killer Bees by disqualification. So they got theirs. There was another heel win. And then the Honky Tonk Man, speaking of Honky Tonk Man, this was an upset. Honky Tonk Meat defeated Jake Snake Roberts with Alice Cooper in the corner. It was an upset. Honky Tonk got his hand raised 1, 2, 3, but then Jake Snake got his revenge. Damien came out and said hello, and I nearly gave Jimmy Hart a heart attack. That was funny. That was really the highlight of the whole thing. But if you look back on it, it really, that match served its purpose because Honky getting that big win gave him the momentum he needed to go on and eventually take the belt from Steamboat, which is when Honky became Intercontinental Champion. So back then when you're watching, like, why is Hockey winning this match against Jake Roberts? Well, it served its purpose because it gave Honky Tonk Man the momentum he needed to carry on and go forward. But Jake Roberts had the last laugh with the snake coming out and Alice Cooper, so that was kind of funny. It put Jimmy Hart all night. Yeah, I feel bad for Jimmy, but he took one for the team. That's what he did. The main event obviously was Hogan and Andre. Bob Uecker came out with Mary Hart, and they did their thing. An interesting thing, I did my research on this. There was kind of a thing about this, and I even mentioned it to my friend Bill Apter as well. Believe it or not, there was a point you had to wonder if Andre was going to do the job on this match. And there was somebody noticeably missing on the card. And that was Paul Orndorff. Paul Orndorff was not on the card. Remember, Paul Orndorff wrestled in WrestleMania 2 as a face against Morocco in New York, in Uniondale. And Orndorff was in the back and wanted to have his thing with Hogan, and which they did. They had their feud together. But if Andre wasn't going to do the job, Paul Orndorff was in the back waiting to take a main event against Hogan. He was in the back. The thing, and you got to give Orndorff credit. I mean, he was there. He didn't wrestle, but he was there in waiting just in case that he couldn't. That Andre didn't want to do the job. Obviously, Andre did the job, but Andre scared Hogan because Hogan said in his pre-taped interview and backstage he didn't know what to expect out of Andre in this. He didn't know if Andre was going to do the job. He just gave him a look and this and that, and Hogan really didn't know what to do. What Andre was doing was doing it psychologically. A lot of wrestling, and I've talked to Bill about this over the years. It's not so much physical because there is a lot of physicality, but wrestling is also psychological. Sometimes you have to get into the person that you're wrestling in their head to think that something may or may not go your way to get them going in a direction so you can get them going. You have to like the fuse. Andre, you have to understand, Andre back then was the boss. He was the boss. He's like what the Undertaker is to the locker room. If you crossed Andre and got in the ring with Andre, Andre's going to hurt you. I mean, it's been reported numerous times. Andre's going to make you pay. Andre had to instill a fear and also set a fire to Hogan so they can have a main event quality match that 90,000 plus people paid for. And that was the psychological factor. You didn't know what Andre was thinking. You didn't know what he was going to do the job. You didn't know what was going on. Hogan didn't know. All Hogan had to get psyched and crazy and go in that ring against this big guy. I mean, this is the immovable force against the irresistible object. I want to call it, these are two big behemoths. Remember, Andre's over 500, 600 pounds and a foot taller than Hogan. So, yeah, I mean, come on. I mean, you got to wonder what was the whole deal with this. I mean, Hogan had to have some kind of worry. I mean, he said it himself. He didn't know what to expect. It was not going to be anywhere near what Steamboat and Savage did. There's no way. These are two monster men. There's nothing what they did you're going to see in this. But the highlight was when Hogan was able to get Andre up and slam him. I mean, yeah, I mean that takes a lot. That the strength and help from Andre to get Hogan to, with Andre to get him over to do it. Yeah, it wasn't classic wrestling. I thought in the beginning, right off the bat, when Hogan tried to slam and Andre fell on Hogan 1-2, I really thought we were going to have the title change. I mean, it was like 2.5, and Joey Morella, I thought he might have hit the 3 by accident. If you look at it closely, did Morella hit the 3, or he came pretty darn close. That it could have been it, and who knows? I mean, Andre gets on top of Hogan. Now, hey. Who's gonna pull Andre off? You're talking almost 600-700 pounds. Believe me, Hogan's not gonna pull up. I mean, if Andre puts all his weight on, it ain't gonna happen. So, but yeah, I mean, it worked out, and Hogan retained, and Andre and Hogan went and had some battles. They had a steel cage match actually on an outdoor event that you can go and watch. Wrestle War. They continued this thing for a little bit, but What will we take away from this thing? I mean, yeah, the main event wasn't meant to be caught. It was kind of hard to top what you did with Steamboat and Savage because that's what it's all about. But I talk about the fact, a number of things. Number one, this was as about a loaded card as you can get. It was a balanced card with faces and heels winning. You didn't have all the titles on the line or 10 days. You didn't need to do that. You had two titles out of four on the line, and one of them changed hands. It was perfect. That's exactly what you wanted. Fans didn't. I would have. I wanted to see the women on the card. I think that would have been acceptable. But the women were not showcased. But still, that's fine. You also had to look at, yes, Orndorff was in the back just in case. So, yes, that was part of it. But Andre did his thing. I also take away a number of things. Number one, Rita Chatterhorn. A lot of people don't remember this, but Rita Chatterhorn was one of the, is is credited as the first female referee. If you look closer to the stories and ringside, she was there. She wasn't physically in the ring, but she was around ringside. She was there. She was a female referee. Not going to get into what happened or why she's no longer with the company, but she is the first female official referee in pro wrestling history, Rita Chatterhorn. You can look up her story and the things online, but I want people to understand this, that she was there. And who was that lady during refereeing some of these matches during where they were hyping up the some of the matches and choking? Who was that? Rita Chatterhorn was the first official female referee for wrestling in general and WWE and wrestling all over. So she was one. But you can find out more about her online and what goes on. It's not what the point is. Legendary Dick Worley, who passed away, another great referee, was there. Joey Morella opened WrestleMania. Joey Morella closed WrestleMania. Joey Morella was Gorilla Monsoon's son. If you don't remember that, yes, that was his son. Joey Morella passed away tragically, and I don't think Gorilla was ever the same after that. And it was very hard on him. And Gorilla Monsoon was actually very close to Bobby Heenan in real life, rest his soul as well. So it was very, very hard for Gino to go and do what he did. So this was a lot of this was a very, very special WrestleMania. Also, the number of wrestlers that are no longer alive today. If you go back 33 years, Gorilla Monsoon is not with us. Bobby Heenan, Piper, Andre, Hercules is not with us. George the Animal Steel, Savage, Elizabeth is no longer with us, just to name a few. King Kong Bundy is no longer with us. There were a number of wrestlers, number of performers that are no longer with us that have passed over the past 33 years. Andre, no longer with us. Johnny Valiant passed away about a year ago. Mr. Fuji's no longer with us. Blassie is no longer with us. Very, very sad that if you look back on this Mania 33 years, the number of performers that are no longer with us, it really is a tragedy. I know we all get older and what have you, but still, what a tragedy. And that's something that I look back on and watching WrestleMania 3 is that the number of performers that number was. The balance. Aretha Franklin, who sang American Beauty, she's not with us. But you want to take away all the positives. 90 plus thousand. Savage and Steamboat. Legendary match. Still talked about 30 plus years today. Savage will forever be remembered as a great performer and took his craft very seriously. And every interview that you heard about, every performer that wrestled and worked with him, yes, he had his thing with Elizabeth, the jealousy and what have you, but you cannot take away the performer of what Randy Savage was. And he had great partners in the ring. Ricky Steamboat. Tito Santana worked very well with him. Hogan and Savage had great chemistry together. There was very solid chemistry with his opponents, and they put the titles on the line, and they defended. Savage went out and worked. Savage was a worker. Savage wanted to go out and perform as much as he could. And you got to give credit where credit was due. Honky Tonk Man, too, was an incredible champion as well. He defended that Intercontinental Champion against all comers. Give him credit. So that's some things I take away as far as that this card took away a lot of things and demonstrated a lot what these performers should be able to do going forward. If you wanted to be a performer, you watch Savage and Steamboat, hands down. That's what I take away from it. I take away that this was in front of 90 plus thousand and set the stage that the WWF, WWE can hold events in the future, which they did in outdoor places if you could just get the right build up and the right story. Yeah, they wrestled in Trump Plaza the next couple of years, but they eventually migrated to outdoors again. They had outdoor events in Canada. Hogan and Andre wrestled outdoors in a cage, but it was a far cry from when Bruno Sammartino took on Larry Zbyszko in Shea Stadium. That was only a few years before, and not too far back. but it did not have 90,000 people. They didn't have that. And remember, Hogan fought Andre back in Shea Stadium back in the day when Andre was a face and Hogan was a heel. A lot of people forget that. They did face each other. But the main event was Zbyszko and San Martino, and that goes down as probably one of the best cage matches, I think, of all time. And that was held outdoor, but they didn't have 90,000 people. It goes to show you that wrestling evolved. With the right marketing, and Vince McMahon, have to give him credit where credit was due. He was able to go out there and take wrestling to a whole new level and get it more mainstream with The Rock and Aaron, the MTV and what have you, and bring wrestling to the forefront. But you had to have the performers to do it. And considering how bad WrestleMania 2 was, WrestleMania 3 was the rebound WrestleMania and the WrestleMania that set the stage going forward to where we're at today. And that's what I'm going to take away from it. It set the stage from where we're going out, where we're going today, from that point forward and above and beyond. And what I want to see in future WrestleManias is the balances of the face and the heels. All the titles don't need to be on the line. We don't need to have it as a clash of champions. We can have a balance. We need to have the women's showcase, which we're doing now. WrestleMania 35, Becky, Ronda, and Charlotte close the show. I would love to see the women close the show again. We've come a long way since WrestleMania 3. Yes, we haven't had the Savage Steamboat, but we've come a long way. And I can only believe that if we just go back to this Mania specifically, the blueprint is there for the future of what WrestleMania in the future needs to be about. Not about all the titles on the line, creating stories, having to try to be able to emulate or generate matches of the quality of Steamboat and Savage, but also the fun and silliness of Piper and Adonis. A combination of those things. Yes, a combination of those things. And showing and the talent of the performers of what they can do and have fun doing it and entertain the audience. And I think that's what we take away from. That's what I'm going to take away from. I also forgot to mention Howard Finkel. I did a rough cut. Howard Finkel's no longer with us. Rest his soul. And if you don't already know by now, Howard Finkel is the one who is credited and coining the phrase WrestleMania. So Howard Finkel's legacy will last forever as well. So with that being said, yes, WrestleMania 3 was great to relive on FS1, watching backstage, seeing Steamboat's got gray hair. You know, he's an older man now. But he looks like he could still get in the ring and go 60 minutes with Ric Flair or Randy Savage. But we will take away positive memories from this, and we all should. It does set the stage going forward, and I cannot stress that enough. And I also want to tell you, all you fans like this, never, ever, ever say wrestling is fake. There is nothing fake about what these men and women do 300 plus days a year. The blood is real. The chair shots are real. The body slams are real. It's predetermined. It's characters. It's sports entertainment. Yes. But these are real men and women going through that curtain with one shot to make a lasting impression. How many of you can go out in front of that curtain in front of 100,000 people and do what Savage and Steamboat did? Nobody. Very few. Or put on a match that's fun and silly what Piper and Adonis did, or Jake the Roberts and Honky Tonk and Hogan and Andre. How many people can say that? No. Unless you've physically done what these men and women have done 300 plus days a year, don't ever call it fake, because there's nothing fake. These men and women gave their lives, and they have to live with the aches and the pains until the day they die. Even Bruno Sammartino, to the day he died, was a workout fanatic, still had to live with the bumps and the bruises and the pain every single day for what he took inside that ring. That squared circle takes its toll on you. All for us to give us 2 hours, 3 hours away from our own reality and our own worlds that we are in. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for this very special edition of Russ Cuts, remembering WrestleMania 3. As always, God bless you. May all your matches be a main event each and every time. Until next time, this is Sal Lasardo reporting in from Claremont, Florida. Have a good one.